Today I'm going to be forging log dogs. Sometimes they're called spike dogs, which is probably a more accurate term because it's basically just an iron bar with a spike at each end. One spike would be driven into the log that you need to work on, and the other spike would be driven into a heavy hewing bench or a sleeper laid on the ground that supported the log that you were working on. So this was basically used to just pin the log in place so that it would keep it from rolling around while you're working on it. An actual log dog would be much longer than this, but in this video I'm just showing you how to make the ends so the center section can be made any length that you want. You can make log dogs out of anything you want, round bar, square bar, flat bar, it really doesn't matter. The only really important thing with log dogs is to make sure that the bar that you're using is heavy enough to stabilize the log that you're working on. A large diameter green log can exert a fair amount of torque on a pair of log dogs, so you have to make sure that the spikes are heavy enough to resist that movement. Don't forget the log isn't just sitting there. There's, one or two people probably working on it. They may be standing on it while they're working, and if they're chopping on one side, that could put a lot of pressure, to make that log want to roll. So you have to make sure that those tines are heavy enough and they don't start deforming little by little so that they just sort of let go all at once. I usually start by forging a fairly short, thick taper, and then I bend the bar over and get ready to do the square corner. Now, some would argue that you can stop right here, leave the rounded corner, and the tool would work just fine, but that really isn't the case at all. The square corner on this tool is not a decorative feature. You need to have the hammer positioned over the top of the spike in order to be able to drive it in efficiently. Also, if you leave the rounded corner, you're going to need to drive the spike in by hammering further down the shaft of the dog, and that really sends a lot of vibrations right back into your hand while you're trying to control the piece to get it set. And as always, my method of forging square corners is in the vise. I find it quicker and easier, and it's so much easier to do complicated shapes in the vise. For example, in this case, I'm able to forge the spikes first when the bar is straight, which makes it a lot easier, and then I can hammer it into a square corner. If I hammered the square corner first, then I would be flipping the bar around to try to get the spikes shaped, and that can be really awkward if you're working with a very long bar. As I mentioned earlier, this is not a decorative piece, so the square corner needs to be functional, not artistic. So as long as you have a square corner that will get the hammer over top of the spike, then you're okay to leave it like that. Don't forget, this is a tool, it's going to be hammered on, and that corner is going to get misshapen very soon anyway. So do the best you can, but if it's not a perfect square corner, don't worry about it. Now the other end of the dog gets forged exactly the same way, except that the orientation of the spike needs to be 90 degrees from the first one that you made. So basically the legs need to be bent up so they're parallel to each other and in the same orientation that way, but the actual spikes are sitting 90 degrees from each other. I don't have any logs kicking around right now, so I'll have to try to show you on the blackboard here why the orientation of the legs is so important. This group of circles represents the end face of the log that you're working on. Underneath it is the log that's keeping it up off the ground, so it's running 90 degrees to the log that you're working on. So these dogs always get driven in with the wide face of the spike running parallel to the log that it's being driven into. So the log that you're working on gets the spike that's running 90 degrees to the length of the dog, and the support log gets the spike with the face that's running parallel to the length of the dog. Hi, I'm Dennis and thanks for watching. As most of you know, for the past few years I've been producing YouTube videos on a part-time basis. I am now looking to turn that hobby into a full-time job, and for that I really need your help. A small monthly contribution from a really small number of viewers will generate the income that I need to achieve that goal. So if you're interested in the work that I'm doing and you want to lend your support, please click on the Patreon icon at the bottom of the screen. Thank you. We'll see you next time.